How is everyone doing? My name is Zico from the Hit Music Studio, and in this video, which is a live stream, I would like to talk a little bit about the importance of playing and practicing exercises, which I think is something that is very, very important for everyone to be able to do. One of the things that happened, I guess, this week is I was talking to a customer, to a parent, and they wanted to talk because they said that their child had been multiple weeks on the same song. And it's interesting because it's one of the things that it's a recurring conversation that I have had with multiple, customers, that sometimes students tend to get a little bit stuck on a song. Now, when that happens, one of the easiest ways to get them unstuck is to almost practice other things and almost beef up a little bit their technical ability by doing exercises. And I know that for a lot of students, including some of them that are young, it can be a little bit challenging to do exercises, because I equate it to this. I equate it to exercises. To me, are similar to, let's say, vegetables. Is it fun to eat things like pizza and burgers that of course I enjoy as well? Yes, but can you eat that every day, all day? Probably not. So it's almost the same thing happens with music. To me, the songs are a little bit like the fun things, the things that you really enjoy. It's really almost cool to be able to like listen to a song in a, let's say, in a movie, in a TV show, and be able to be, oh, I want to learn that. I really like how it sounds, and let me kind of like work on it so I can be able to play it. So in this video, I would like to like talk a little bit about specific exercises that we recommend, a little bit of ideas how to practice them. But the importance of doing them, I would say, always including your practice routine exercises, because the technical side, I think, can never be just neglected. One of the things that I see a lot with students that only want to do songs is that they get stuck. And I think one of the things that we try here at the Hit is to make sure that the process of learning is fun. I don't believe in that feeling of almost feeling inadequate when you're trying to play a song and it doesn't get any better. It's very frustrating, and I think it can be frustrating enough to be, oh, okay, I'm not gonna do this anymore. This is just I don't like this. I'm not seeing any results. But what happens in the majority of cases is that when people get almost like stuck in the necessity to just do songs, is their technical ability doesn't get any better. So of course they're hitting a wall, and sometimes it's even good. And I have personally done this even with a video that I'm on the works into the future. Sometimes you have to put that piece or song or whatever it is, put it almost, let's say, in a closet for a little bit, and then do other things, and then come back at it once your technical ability is a little bit further out. So I want to talk about a couple of specific ones. Let me show you. One of the first ones that I really like is from a book called Hannon. The person that wrote it, I think his initials were CL Hannon, so his last name is Hannon. And this is almost like there's two versions of it. I will definitely recommend for our students and anyone watching to, if you are almost in the process of getting started, try to get a version called Hannon Xuan, which is a little bit easier, and it's a little bit easier almost to read and to understand. Now, Hannon was, as far as I know, a pianist that came up with some exercises because he felt that there was a lot of issues with people that were trying to play piano that could be resolved if they did a series of exercises. All of them are 60, I believe. It's like the complete book is 60 exercises, but I definitely believe that you don't have to do all 60. If you get into doing the first 5 to 10, I think it's going to be a great addition to your playing. The books are not expensive, they're easy to find. And one of the things that I like about them is that you can do this as a part of your practice routine. Let's say you can spend your first, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes of your practice routine on something like Hannon. Now, Hannon was what I played there at the beginning. One of the things that I see a lot with my students is that when they play, when you play an exercise, part of what we're trying to do is develop control, develop stability. So the last thing that you want to do is this. Or even worse, play with two hands and have the hands not got together. Now that's exactly what we don't want. We want control. So one of the things I would definitely recommend is get some kind of like drum beat or metronome, and make sure that you can go evenly. Now, one thing with exercises, you probably want not only to go evenly in terms of pacing, you want to go evenly in terms of volume too. One of the things that I see a lot with my students is that they don't want to practice exercises, and even less they want to do it with a metronome. Now, I feel this, and this is a personal opinion, there's absolutely no excuse anymore to not practice with a metronome. There's free metronomes online. I think there's one called, it's a website, metronome.org. And I think it's metronomeonline.com. If you put that website, there's a metronome, you press play, and it starts clicking. So if you have a computer, if you have internet, you have a phone, you can get a metronome free. There's also apps that are free, and I'll talk, I guess, quickly on them, including the one that I use. The one that I use right now to do drum beats is not free, but it's, I think, $6.99, which is an incredible price to actually have drum beats on an iPad like that. But the thing that I see a lot is that students want to almost like, they think of exercises, and I heard this, which almost makes me laugh every time, because it's like I ask students, even students that, let's say, transfer from another teacher, okay, have you played Hanon? Yeah, I already did that. It's like, what do you mean you already did that? I've been playing for 32 years. I still do it, and I felt like if I could, I would do it every day. I don't have time to do it every day, but I wish I did. And exercises are something that you never really graduate from them. Now, I understand you don't necessarily want to do the same exercises forever and ever. It's actually, there's probably enough exercises out there that you will never run out of options. But it's important to, I would say, if you can split your practice routine in thirds, I would try to do a third almost working on something new, a third on reviewing things that you have already done, and a third on technical stuff like exercises. Now, the beautiful thing of this is that if you invest the time and you have the discipline to be like, okay, I'm going to do part of my routine is going to be exercises, you sometimes will see results in the almost the barrier that is keeping you from learning something. Now, another thing that I'll touch a point there is that you can almost even tailor exercises specifically to songs and specifically to challenges that you are going through. So let's talk about the second series of exercises. These ones are not necessarily my favorite, but they're the, I guess, world famous major scales. Now, the major scales, I don't love them as an exercise. To me, they're more important for you to be able to read music later on. So if you don't know your major scales, chances are you're not going to be very good at reading music ever. So it's almost like you want to get acquainted with the major scales because there's an equation that is almost like it's a foundation to be able to read music. There's more to it, but that's a very critical part. Now, it is important to, if you do the scales, to once again try to do them with some kind of like machine or metronome. So they're even. So the last thing that you want on a scale is to play it this way. And also, you don't want to play with the incorrect fingerings. One thing that I tell my students, which I think is actually a beautiful thing about music, I think the whole world doesn't agree in a lot of things, but in music, we do agree that when you play a major scale, there's only one fingerings that you should be using on piano. So it's very interesting because the major scales are actually even used as a way to audition musicians. If you study in Europe and then you come to the US or to study music, they're probably going to ask you to play scales and other things. So it's almost interesting when someone doesn't play them correctly. It's very interesting to be like, okay, there's like a standard to how you're supposed to do them. Once again, to me, I don't spend a lot of time on scales because I almost feel like out of all of the exercises that you could be doing, scales are almost the ones that you will not necessarily see applied as much in the exact same way that you play them as an exercise into a song. So I do believe there's value to them, and I would start them slowly. There's 12 major and 12 minor scales. I will start with the major scales and maybe do one. Definitely one of the ways that we encourage our students to do it, especially for piano, just right hand and just left, not both hands together. Both hands together can be very challenging. It's something that you will be required to do if you want to, let's say, go to college for music. But I definitely think that that's almost like an extra step. So definitely start with the hands separate and with metronome. So one more thing that I wanted to talk about here is chords. And chords, I believe that they're incredibly important because one of the things that happens right now is if you want to produce music, if you want to get into recording, songwriting, that type of thing, you need to know your chords. There's a lot of chords that almost like have ways of cheating them, and you can put them into a software and into, like, let's say, like a little pad, and then when you press a button, it kind of like just triggers a chord. But I think it's important to actually know them. So one of the things, chords are, it's a group of 3 keys at a specific distance to one another. So there's 2 major ones, the major chords and minor chords. and I would start learning all of them. So there's 12 majors and 12 minors. One of the things that I would encourage you to do, there's a thing called the circle of fifths. You can probably Google all major chords, and you probably can get very quickly a sheet, and try to learn them with each hand separate. Maybe just, let's say, playing them with the right hand. One of the things that I see a lot, and this even has happened when I work with artists, and even when I have like learned music from artists that I like, a lot of artists gravitate to the same keys. So if you work with someone, I don't know, like let's say Bruno Mars, or you work with Shawn Mendes, or people tend to almost gravitate to certain keys, which is almost like a family of notes. In that context, depending on the artist, they may choose like a family of notes that is a little bit challenging for you. So if you play all 12 and your hand is almost familiar with them, when you want to do the song of your favorite artist, it may be a little bit easier because your hand is already familiar with them. Playing chords is a huge part of what we do as piano players, keyboard players in the context of a band. So if you have a singer, drummer, guitar player, you are going to be playing mostly chords. You do other things as well. But I think getting this as a part of your practice routine as an exercise is incredibly valuable. Another suggestion that I will have with this is try to play them. And this can be done with 8 counts. It can be done with 4 counts, maybe 4 counts each, and go around. It can be any order. Let's say I do C major for 4 counts, and then F major, then B flat major, then E flat major, and so on. So I think you get the idea. Once the exercises, and it's interesting because I met a very famous and high level trumpet player one time, and talking to him, he would say that he would make his own exercises to push him to almost like, okay, what is the hardest thing that I could be doing? Okay, let me try to. So he would create an exercise almost to push him above what he knew he was capable. And I think that's an important part of music, an important part of learning. It's almost like always looking for a way to like push yourself a little bit further. Now, on chords, I want to to mention one more idea of how to practice them. And this is an important thing also for songwriting and for, I guess, music production, which is when you take a chord, you can also start playing it in different patterns. You can almost play it in what's called an arpeggio. You can play it in blocks. Let's say up and down. So you can take, let's say, a drum beat and take a simple, maybe 2 chords and play them in. So chords tend to not necessarily be too stale, to like almost like we play them exactly the same way every time. You do want to have a little bit of variety, and I would almost encourage you to, when you practice them, think of ideas of how to like make them sound a little bit cooler. The possibilities are endless, but I think it's definitely a good thing to try to practice. Now, one of the last things that I want to mention is the option, which I think is a very good one, to go ahead and make exercise based on something that you're struggling with. So if you're playing a pattern and the pattern has something that is giving you a hard time, for example, if you're having something that looks like this, maybe that's a little bit challenging for your hand. So you can take that same pattern and play it in different places on the piano. Maybe, for example, like I can take the pattern and start it here, and I'm going to move it 1 key to the left every 4 counts. So I can go. So maybe the song doesn't go like that, but it's almost like a great way to take something that is giving you a hard time and actually using it as an idea to, okay, I need to do more of that. One of the main things, and I keep on talking with my students and their parents, is repetition. So if you're challenged by something, if something is not coming out right, your fingers cannot keep up or do it correctly, when you take what is it that is giving you a problem and you almost like identify it and take it and put it into almost work by doing things around it, it gets stronger, it gets better, and then you can move almost ahead and along to the other side of the wall and be successful at playing it. So hopefully this idea of practicing exercises as a part of your routine is a productive one for you guys. One of the things that I really want to almost encourage you is like music needs to be fun. And for maybe some of you, you're absolutely doing this because you have a different kind of like job, career, you want to get home and just relax and play something. I would spend a little bit of your time. If your practice routine is 25 minutes, maybe you can do exercises for 5. I think it's sometimes I see when students, it's almost like, okay, can you do a little bit of hand? And it's like, oh, like this is like so, I don't know, so dreadful. But at the same time, don't you want to play cool things? Don't you see yourself a little bit daydreaming of like, oh, it would be awesome when I can do like something like a really hard song or a song that you really want to play that you can't? Well, the bridge to get there can absolutely be the exercises. So it's almost like don't neglect them because it's an investment in yourself and it's an investment in playing better. So definitely we want to encourage you guys to add that as part of your routine. So just to recap, hand-on is a great one. Chords can be really, really functional too. Scales and all of this, I believe that you can Google it. I would start with the major ones. So if you want to start with major chords, major scales, and hand-on, I think that's a really good foundation. And I'm sure you can just Google all that out and find probably sheet music for it for free. So we want to thank you for watching. If you would like to know a little bit more of what we do here at The Hit, check our main website, thehitmusicstudio.com. We are working on multiple things, including a course that is going to be a subscription-based course for adults. So if you are in the market to have not only a course, but a little bit of constant reinforcement and ideas into how to practice piano so you can get a little bit further, definitely stay tuned for what we're doing because that's going to be something coming up now in 2022. And once again, we want to thank you for watching. We'll see you guys on the next one.